Hi, I'm Marcus, and welcome to the License to Kill podcast, where pest control professionals meet cutting edge expertise, industry insights, and a whole lot of camaraderie. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting your journey as a PMP, this podcast dives into everything that makes our industry tick. From advanced techniques and groundbreaking products to hilarious field stories and the real talk about the challenges we face in our industry. Join us as we explore the science, art, and community behind pest control, celebrating the people who work tirelessly to keep our world safe, healthy, and pest-free. As always, stay sharp, stay connected, stay legendary. Let's start the show.
Thank you so much for joining us here, Miss Sylvia. We greatly appreciate it. I know I've been certainly looking forward to talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better. And I really just wanted to do a deep dive into one of the most famous, one of the coolest people in pest control. I feel like I see your name everywhere. Everybody seems to know Miss Sylvia, and I know that many of us are so appreciative for the educational content that you've done for us, the things that you put yourself out there to help us all achieve our dreams. And so, as a listener of the Ace to Ace podcast, myself am a big fan. So, I kind of just wanted to take a day and do a deep dive into you. So, Miss Sylvia, tell me what got you into pest control and where did the passion begin? Where does the start of this story happen at?
Yeah, so I'd love to say that I was a little girl that collected bugs and I had jars, but I did not. I actually wanted to be a marine biologist. And I
Okay.
had somebody in community college tell me, like a teacher, she said, "You will never work in marine biology." And I'm like, "What?" Dream crusher, right? And so then she said, "You've got to find something else in science." And so start thinking about other things. And I worked on their collection of insects, which didn't creep me out, and I started organizing it. It was very organized. And so I'm kind of an organizational freak, and how orders and things have certain places is amazing. And so I just started really getting hooked on just different things. And ants are my favorite insect. They are super cool and do a lot of weird things. And then I answered an ad for what I thought was Target stores. It was actually Target specialty products, and
Right.
that's where it began.
Awesome, awesome. So, ants are your favorite. I definitely have a couple of favorite ants, and down here in the deep South Texas area, we deal with the tawny crazy ant. I think I've gone on some pretty long rants about how that's a fan favorite of mine. What's your favorite ant? Why
So
ants?
So ants, because they do weird stuff that we don't want to talk about. Like they are all sisters that help their mother raise more sisters, because believe it or not, like if you think about it, if you need a kidney, you'll go to a sibling, not your parent, because you have more genes that are similar. And so it's the same with ants. Somehow they know that it's by having more sisters, it's beneficial to the colony. So they do weird things like that. They also, like this time, I have Argentine ants here in California a lot. And right now they're executing queens because old queens are slower at producing eggs and then young queens are better at it. And so they do weird stuff like that, which I think is cool. I like black crazy ants. So black crazy ant, Paratochina longicornis is my favorite ant. I actually have an ant tattoo on my back. Um, and yeah, they're great because they're really calm. Everything's great, right? And the minute you piss them off, they act crazy, and I just think that's a cool behavior.
Absolutely, I love watching them do the zigzaggy running
Oh yeah,
patterns, and
right.
there's a million things about the crazy ant that really does justify that crazy name, and so I do love them as well. Okay, so you were originally going to go for marine biology. You kind of got curved into a different direction, and then you started working at Target. What did you do there? Like, where you? I know now you work for BASF as like a senior technical representative, but obviously this is the beginning of your journey. So how did you get from Target to what you're doing now, and what does that look like for you in your day to day?
Yeah. So I started answering phones, and then I went to customer service, and I actually spent 12 years in customer service. And that is really like the coolest job, because people would come in and ask, "Hey, what do you got that kills this?" And not knowing anything, you would have to spend time reading labels, learning what products work, talking to other people, getting feedback. And when I first started, so I've been doing this for 36 years. I got to tell you, there weren't a lot of women. right? And
Yes.
so, like, the guys would come in, and I was one of the only women in the office, and they would say, "Let me talk to one of the guys." And then the guy would go, "All right." So he'd go to the will call, and we played this every day, every day. And they would say, "Hey, what's good for German cockroaches in a commercial kitchen?" And they say, "Wait a minute, let me ask. Hey, Sylvia, what would they use for German cockroaches?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, this one, whatever products." And then they would do that a few times. And I'm like, "All right, just bring her up here. Just bring her up here." And so I just learned, and I was really good at reading labels and understanding, and I was getting a degree in biology. So they would just ask me questions. And so I loved that part of interacting with pest control. And I understood it's a lot of information, right? Math, science, and you get thrown into this industry and you don't even know that it's going to be that
Right.
much technical, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's the most hidden aspect. Our industry just flies under the radar for most people, and when they do see it, they kind of just think, general labor, and they don't realize, like you said, how much technical information goes into, how much deep diving into science, and how many millions of dollars is poured into, developing the stuff that we do. That it's not magic spray. It actually does work based on chemistry, and every bit of that chemistry has been well thought out. So. I
For sure.
wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, labels aren't easy. And I remember, so I dealt with pest control and TNO, and I really felt sorry for those guys because back in the day, Roundup was like this booklet of, I don't know, maybe 50 little pages in microscopic 8-point type. And you're just trying to figure out, what do I put on this one lawn? And it's all by acre, right? You had to know how many square feet in an acre. And they're like, how much do I put in a sprayer? And it's like, I wish I could tell you it's that easy, but it's not, which I just noticed on Pest Cemetery. Some guy advertised a math app for pest control, which I
Yes,
think is brilliant because
yes.
it's not easy math. And you think, well, now I have this phone that can do all the math. If you don't have the basics, it makes it really hard.
Well, then I'm going to have to take 2 seconds then and shout out. My last guest on the show was Dan Porter with ChemCal, and he's actually developing a software right now. It's ChemCal, Chemical Calculator, for this exact reason, for this exact problem. And it uses AI assisted stuff to help understand and read the label and then give you those formulas and give you those calculations that you need. I also saw the post from Pest Math on Pest Cemetery, and that was a big topic of conversation, is just how legal that these labels are and how they're written kind of in legalese and technical terms, and they're not necessarily super duper difficult to read, but at the same time they're not easy as well, and they're designed that way on purpose. They're designed to cover the liability of the manufacturers and such. And so but I saw recently that you were on Capitol Hill. I think you were doing some legislative day, right? You were doing some
Yeah.
legislative work. So
Yep.
talk to me a little bit about that. I know that also is kind of that legal, technical talk, that jargon that kind of gets. Do you swim in those waters well? Is there an effort to try and dumb that down for people, or what is that looking like?
So obviously, I'm in California, and so a lot of stuff starts here, right? Pyrethroid regulations started here on all the rodenticide issues, and honestly, I considered myself a good citizen of the United States. I vote. I don't know that it's necessary. Back then, I don't know if it was informative voting, because let's be honest, you're trying to get a vote, a thing in. You didn't read all of the bills, and you're just sitting there trying to figure out who's against, who's for. Does that work? You're going to say, is this the incumbent? Yeah, that works. He probably is doing a good job, right? And so you just vote. And so when these bills started coming through on rodenticides and I went to these meetings, I was like, these are uninformed people that think like we're just throwing stuff out there killing wildlife, and they have no
Right.
idea the situation. And so I started on a task force for rodenticides, and then I realized how legal it was. And whether we like it or not, you have to pay money to get your voice heard, which sucks,
Yes.
but that's lobbying. That's the way it works. And so we are very, very, very small in compared to these people that can raise a gajillion dollars. I mean, I drove from NorCal to SoCal this week. There is a wildlife corridor being built off the 405. It's massive. They have these beautiful lights on it. And I'm thinking to myself, this sounds cool, but who's going to tell the mountain lions, like, this is the way you go? Don't go through the 405 freeway. Go up and over this corridor we've built for you. And I think it's nice that they're trying to do that, but that's a lot of money we could have spent on a lot of things we could use. And so I went up there. We don't have any bills on the exactly on pesticides, but there's some labor things. But I think it's important for all of us to try and get involved and at least meet your local people and tell them, hey, I work in your district. I live in your
Right.
district, and this is what I do. And hey, maybe you'll get a customer out of it. I don't know, but I mean, at least they know what we do. And I think that I'm not a shy person, but at the same time, I'm pretty introverted. And so for me to put myself out there, it's not easy. Like I have to sit there and like get all worked up and go, all right, I can do this. I can
Right.
learn about these labor bills and I can talk. And I think it's scary, but we really should all do it.
Well, you're a phenomenal speaker, and you do so much speaking around. I know you're well trained, and you're definitely an amazing educator. So I'm glad we have people like you up there educating those legislators and making sure that they're aware of what we're doing out here. And I wholeheartedly agree that everyday people should be a little bit more involved. I personally, this is my 11th year as a technician, and the first 10 years, I just had my nose to the grindstone. I mean, just looking down, paying attention to the baseboard and the bugs, and that's good. Obviously, I'm doing a good job at my job, but absolutely, this is really the recently has been the first time I've actually lifted my nose up from that grindstone and started talking to people and interacting with you, like you said, those local people, and really starting to understand the voices of the people who are in our industry, and really more than anything, learning that I too have a voice in this industry. And like you said, the everyday people need to be expressing it. And so I really, really agree with that. And I support what you're doing. And I'm very thankful that introverted or not, you've taken a leadership position, you've taken the charge. And when I saw your podcast, of course, I'm not, I just started this whole thing out of a whim. I'm a video game guy. I'm not really a podcaster, and I guess now I am. But um, when I because I'm a avid listener of podcasts, and so to me it realized it was like, you know what, someone has to do it, right? Someone has to stand up. So nobody's out here celebrating, the awesome people who are putting their life out there, who are dedicating, tens of thousands of hundreds of hours, on these things. And so I just decided I wanted to do that. And so what I'm saying is just thank you so much for being that person to take the charge, because it's inspired me to also follow suit. And I really hope that other people in our industry do that as well. So
Yeah,
thank
I,
you.
I agree. And that's why I do. And we went with like four newbies and you get comfortable and it's like then you started diverting to them and they started talking about like there was one of the gals was from a fumigation company. She does fleet. But then she talked about like we have a bill about like cameras and limiting like camera use and surveillance because people think it's an invasion of privacy. And we're talking about like cameras on your cars because we're hauling hazardous waste. You guys have your name all on the outside of trucks, and so and I don't even know that I didn't even know this happens, but I guess people will cut you off and slam their brakes and have you
Oh
run
yeah,
into them. I didn't even know that
yeah.
crap happened.
Oh, insurance scams. People
Uh-huh.
people who target work trucks. Anyone they know that they have insurance.
Hmm.
I personally, yeah, I've experienced that before as well. I mean, I live in
That's
a major city, so it
awful.
happens.
But those cameras help protect you so you can see that people do those shenanigans and now we're trying to we're in a very challenging state and so they're looking at privacy issues but she just started talking and it was really cool and I'm like so what'd you think she's like that was actually really cool and I'm like it's not it's scary but it's not right you can talk about this stuff and she's like no I mean that would really our insurance would go up if we lose that and I'm like and that's why you have to say something and so it was neat
Right.
it was a great experience.
So let me ask you, talking about the camera, just to kind of like sidebar a little bit. There's, I think, a gentleman. I don't want to say anybody's name or whatever, but I want to say there's a business out there that's promoting using body cams for the services.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that? Tell me, are you pro? Are you against? Do you see liability issues? Do you feel like this is the way of the industry moving forward? More
You
helpful,
know,
more harmful? What are you thinking?
so you know what? My challenge is this. You guys are on camera more than you'd like, right? Because since like everybody has these cameras all over their properties now and they make judgments on what you're doing based on video footage, right? They're like, "Oh, they see the tag on the door, the pest control guy was here. Let's see what he did," right? And so then they're reviewing their tapes and they're like, "What the hell is he doing? Nothing," right? And so it's frustrating because assessment takes looking, right? And you're looking at things. You're trying to make an assessment. Judging film is not fair in my opinion because you guys might be
Yeah.
doing a lot of other assessments and that does, it may look like you're just standing around looking at stuff, right? But maybe you're looking for an entry point. And so if you're in areas where you need to protect yourselves and you feel that way, especially for clients that may falsely accuse you, I feel like that's why police do it. It's because they're having to protect themselves. So I think that you guys have to do what you need to do. You go into people's homes. You guys are, people can accuse you of a lot of things. And so if
Right.
you feel personally it's something you need to do to protect yourself, I think it's great. A company mandate would be tough because maybe personally you don't feel like you want to do that. And so I feel like it has to be a personal choice in my opinion, but I hate to say mandates for everybody because it may not be a right fit for you, right?
I know that too. There's been a lot of interest in like remote, electrical remote monitoring for rodents and stuff like that, and they're deploying like rodent cameras and stuff. So to me, all of those things kind of wrap together under the same umbrella. Like you're talking about invasion of privacy. Um, I think some of those privacies maybe get suspended when you opt into having a service for someone to come inside your house and do treatment. If the expectation is that I'm supposed to be treating all the closets and the nooks and crannies and all of this stuff, then it seems reasonable that you would kind of have suspended your right to privacy during that moment. But I can also see the flip side of that coin where it's, maybe you have some personal affects laying around or, some things that you would not necessarily want being filmed and then reviewed outside of the service of the person who was actually there at your house. And I think that's something that, customers are going to have to really balance with. And I guess more people are going to try it, and then we'll just get the feedback from the marketplace, whether it's wanted or whether it's not wanted.
Agreed. I totally agree. Like, and it like Uber, right? Those guys put those cameras in there because people falsely accuse them of stuff in the car, and so they're trying to protect themselves, right? And so I feel like we'll have to watch and see that bill that's trying to ban all of the surveillance, even like in warehouses where we store hazardous chemicals, and maybe you want to make sure somebody's not breaking in and or an employee's misusing, or maybe somebody just needs more training, right? And so all this technology is coming so fast and
Yes.
so readily and inexpensive, which I think is the biggest thing, right? Like you bought cameras before, and we talked game cameras maybe 4 years ago. They were cost prohibitive. Now you can get like all of these cameras so cheap and be able to
Yeah.
do things. So
And they're
it's
higher
a,
quality.
oh
10,
yeah,
10,
for
1080,
sure.
4K. Yeah, good
Oh
imagery.
yeah. Totally. So I think we'll have to keep an eye on it, but it's definitely interesting.
So we're talking a little bit about, products that are being banned or, legislative stuff. Obviously, you mentioned rodenticides, and you're over there in California. What has been going on the rodenticide of things, and where's your head at? Are you, like you said, there's kind of this misconception that we're out there just tossing rodenticide all over the place. But obviously, we're trained professionals. We're using strategy. We're using protective equipment, to make sure that only target species are getting in there. But it seems like it's not just California, right? We have the Europe that's doing the same kind of thing. So, as someone who goes and speaks on those issues, do you feel like there's a concern that needs to be raised about rodent being blown out of proportion, or
Yeah. So this year was probably one of the years that we've had more bills introduced in other states, including a lot of the Northeast. So there's one in Massachusetts, New Hampshire. There's one in New York, and so I think that EPA reviews all of our products, and it's in review, and it's still in review, and so we'll see. I think that the challenge for our industry is we have a pest that we have managed for decades, and we know so little about it. Like it's shocking. Like I work a lot with Dr. Neve Quinn out here in California, and she's like, there's like entomologists everywhere, and she's Irish, and she's like, they're like, you're like falling off in the trees. But yet, when you look at rodentologists, you can name maybe 5 people on your hand that you would identify as a rodentologist, including like Bobby Corrigan. But then we have us that play in the dark side, right? Matt Fry in New York, he's an entomologist. Claudia Rigel in New Orleans, she's an entomologist. Me, I'm an entomologist. Janet Hurley she's an entomologist, right? So you have all these entomologists trying to get in that space, and we just don't have the science behind it that we need. And so, yes, we have to use the tools we have, and we do the best we can with the tools that we're provided. But I feel like we're trying to catch up with a science that just isn't as robust as we'd like it to be. And we know that for sure they're finding it in wildlife. Does exposure mean anything? We don't know that. We have no idea. And so I think our challenge is trying to balance protecting public health and that sense of we need to do something now. I think the Gene Hackman tragedy, I feel like all three of those people died from hantavirus, right? Or two people and a dog. And yet it was, oh, it's this rare disease. Look up hantavirus and look up deer mice. They're in a lot of places. And to pawn it off like it's this, oh, it's this rare disease. It's like, yeah, people may not be dying every day, but it's 100% preventable.
Right.
100%. And so I feel like we don't get the information we need when it comes to rodents, and it's more cited to the people that have money and are looking at wildlife. And again, none of us want to kill wildlife with the products we use. It's this unintentional pathway that we've got to figure out, and we don't have the science yet. We don't know. It's all best
You
guessing.
know, I didn't even know there was a thing called a rodentologist. I actually didn't realize that was a separate
It
science
is.
category. I thought just, once you were an entomologist, it kind of just included the whole umbrella of all this stuff. So it sounds like, so is there not a robust enough structure to create a pipeline of people into those studies as well as people who are interested in that? I feel like because on my end of things, right, I talk to technicians all day long, and there's thousands of very passionate technicians who care about rodents and who care about wildlife and are major conservationists. And at the same time, though, they're also very good at what they do because they understand the rodents. They understand their, opposition, if you will, and or at least in that moment. And so, has anybody thought about creating some kind of pipeline or scholarship program or identifying those people in the industry who are already showing an exceptional capacity for rodent control and then bringing the education to them? I know university is so prohibitive, and there's a lot of people, apply for various different degrees, but you can't apply for it if you don't know about it. And I've been
Yep.
working in this industry for 11 years. I didn't even know rodentologist was a thing. So,
Yeah. Well, and so like Purdue is like where all of these places were born, right? Pest control as a science was born in Purdue, and that's where Dr. Bobby Corrigan, he got his degree, and it's biology with an emphasis in rodentology. And so, and Bobby one time, so I get to speak at New York Rodent Academy every year on the rodenticides. It's my favorite thing to do, and he'll refer to me as a rodentologist, and I'm like, I don't have any studies. I mean, I don't have any classes. He's like, but you studied it as a person. And so I agree with you. People in the field could easily put themselves in that category. I feel like the academies in general, so like Florida has a rodent academy, New York, Texas, California, we have West Coast, right? Where we're trying to bring the science and the management together. It's 3 days of intense training to try and level up your rodent expertise. There's so few books. Like I mean, if you look, Bobby Corrigan's book is like one of the only books, and he's trying to update it, but it's like it takes time to do that stuff. So yeah, every pest has a science. If you notice, I have mermaid. Myrmecology is the study of ants. And I have, a couple of courses of myrmecology, so I can, I guess, call myself a myrmecologist because I am a biologist. But it's crazy how disciplined you can get. And you're so right. There are so many trained professionals out there that probably could really teach this information. And there's just not the pathways to get you to get the credentials. Um, which is why ACE is so passionate for me, because there's so few
yes.
credentials for you guys. Look, I didn't want to go to college. I was on the 8-year plan. I'm honest. I started and I was a goof off. I studied, I didn't take it seriously. I worked more. It took me 8 years to get my BS degree because I just wasn't serious. And then, it's hard working and going to school, and school's not for everybody. And so I love ACE because it gives you a pathway to level up. You're definitely going to study some weird stuff, and you can take that and put it in a credential that is meaningful.
So who came up with the ACE program? Because I have to thank that person personally and give them a handshake because, I am actually also trying to follow through that program. And I agree as someone, who I didn't go to college, I foregone college. And, I did, some community college, but I chose to be in the workforce. And 10 years later, it would be nice to have something, like you said, like some kind of accreditation or some letters at the end of my name saying, hey, I'm a trade master at my craft, and not just, and that I'm educated as well. And that, I'm not just, a general laborer or anything else like, these other kind of sort. And so, who came up with that program? Where did it come
Yeah.
from?
So the Entomological Society of America, which is the National Society for Entomology in all fields, at some point in industry, and this is before my time of getting involved, but at some point, industry is like, we know a lot about entomology, and yeah, we may not have a 4-year degree or a PhD or a master's degree, but how can we demonstrate that we are experts? And so they've always had this board certification, this for entomologists that can show like a discipline, right? Because you have a lot of PhDs out there, not all of them are board certified entomologists. That takes you into our industry, or a specific expertise like veterinary or medical or something like that. And so they came up with this program for the general, anybody who had 2 years of pest control, and you study and pass this exam. And I remember people telling me about it, and even board certification. I'm like, I'm not getting that. I'm not going to go back and study for that. And eventually I did, and it was really hard. Like, I did it 10 years after I graduated school. I can remember any of that crap. And so, and I study weird, like I make flashcards. I'm all about mnemonics, like how to memorize something. And then after I did it, and people were telling me, I want to get the ACE thing. And I'm like, what is that? And so I researched it, and I'm like, no way, this is hard. Like, it was hard for me. It's got to be hard for everybody that's going back to like high school level and trying to remember how the hell to study. And so I started doing this Ace the Ace class in person like in 2013. And there are people out there that were doing Ace training, but it was like one-on-one classes, and it was cost prohibited. And there was no, like widespread internet or podcasts or anything. And so
Right.
I would do these classes trying to help people study. And I came up with all these weird ways to learn things like flashcards and stuff. And for me, just the joy of getting somebody to tell me, oh my God, this helped me, thank you, has been such a thing. Because like for you, the same way podcast, it was COVID. I had nothing to do on Sundays, and somebody had asked, I wish there was like something I could listen to in my car. And I'm like, I wonder if I could just blab for 20 minutes, if somebody could actually learn something and pass a test. And it worked.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's
I'm a
it's
huge
hilarious.
auditory learner. I love, love, love podcasting. I listen to a lot of educational content. And as someone who's, constantly walking around or working with my hands, it's so enlightening to know that your brain has the capacity to just multitask on that level, that you can still be working, you still be driving, you still be doing whatever it is you're doing, and receiving a high quality education at the same time, and actually learning things. And like there are times where maybe I have to pause and go back and re-listen to a section just because I really want to make sure I heard that correctly. But I absolutely agree. Using that downtime or maximizing any of those little gaps in the schedule where there would be like any kind of inefficiencies, and you're able to just maximize your productivity through the day. And that's how I feel like I'm able to do is using the Ace to Ace, is that I'm able to learn, I'm able to get better at my trade craft while not taking away from my home life at the end of the day, studying books late into the wee hours, and not being able to interact with my family. And so, absolutely, it's a great technology, and then you utilize it so well. The Ace to Ace is very clear, it's very legible, or very easy to understand, and the episodes are broken into great segments. I mean, it really is. the perfect little passive training tool that people like me who are studying for the ACE are very excited for. And I know that some of us were in the Discord. We knew that when we were going to be getting a chance to talk to you, that a lot of our guys got really excited, and you had kind of mentioned maybe coming in and giving a bit of a training class for us, and you just don't know how many people reacted to that, and we're just so excited and so thrilled because, like you said, a lot of this stuff is either independent and you just have to go find out for yourself and then study for yourself and then pass yourself, and to have someone who's done it, who's been there, who can hold you by the hand and say, like this, this step, then this step, then this step, it really helps out. It really helps out with that scalability, like you said, that instead of just training one person at a time, you're capable of training hundreds and thousands of people at a time. And I think that's the key, right? It's that scalability difference of the technology, and you're one of those people who's on the forefront of that. You've been utilizing it, and I think, like you said, it's all just been in the last 5 years, last couple of years. It's really, really, really taken off. I think, what was it this year? The Purdue was moving at the speed of AI, something like that was the
Yep.
was the topic for the year. So, AI, social media, it's all one big space, but those who are willing to use it are being massively rewarded. And you're one of those people. And I think we all look and we can all see it. There's a ton of us that are on LinkedIn and Facebook and elsewhere. And it's approachable. I think that's the part that you're screaming the loudest, is that like anybody can do this, and everybody
Yep.
should be doing this.
Yep.
And so, again, just another thank you for, taking that bravery and also being interested. A lot of people are, scared of change, or they don't want to use the new thing, or, and even today, this is your first day on the Discord with us,
It
and
is.
you had no qualms. You were like, I'm clicking the link. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make a profile. This is
Oh
no
yeah, I just
problem.
started doing a profile, and I'm like, and it's like you can pick an avatar, a real picture. I just put my real picture on there. What am I gonna do? Like, I have nothing to hide, so I did it. So yeah, no, it is, and it's cute too, because like I'll go to events and someone's like, yeah, I'm gonna get my ACE, and it might be somebody more in my age range, a little older, and they're like, I go, do you listen to podcasts? And I'm taking their phone and showing them where their podcast is. I'm like, I help them get the app, I help them subscribe, and I'm like, and there's a lot of really cool podcasts with pest control you can search, and they're like, wow, that's really cool. And it's like, it is really fun. And I yeah, it's been it's I can't tell you how much I love when I go to a meeting and I'm in Massachusetts or wherever, and someone's like, oh my God, your podcast helped me pass. And I'm like, this is so cool. Or you look at the countries, because I'm sure you can do it too on the Discord. You can see all the countries, and it's like somebody from, like, I don't remember, it was somewhere like just outside of Israel, and he goes, it helped me pass. And I'm like, that's bizarre.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The reach. I mean, it's like we've got people in the UK, we've got people in Nigeria, we've got people just all over the globe, and but all of the information it is relevant, it's consistent, it's science, so it doesn't change continent you're standing on. It's all this, it's all valid information. And yeah, I think that is so incredible. And I'm one of those people that as soon as I get to see you, Sylvia, I'm gonna give you a high five and a hug and thank you for
Yeah.
what you've done with the podcast, because it has also helped me. And when I do take my test and I'm certain I'll pass it, I will bring my piece of paper for you to sign like an
Excellent.
autograph.
It's all good. And like, and the other thing too is, no, I'm happy to help. That's one thing. Sometimes I'll get an email and they're like, hey, I listened to your podcast. You had some suggestions of like how to write a recommendation letter, or like what's the best studying. I have no trouble answering emails. I'm like, hey, or like it's even the Facebook's Messenger. I'll try, because I'm not good. Like, there's just way too many ways we can all connect. But it's like I have no trouble helping you. And so ask, and know that I'm kind of all over the place. So give me some patience, because I don't always answer right away, as you know. But I will help, and I'm happy to help you on a journey, because it's nothing better than working on yourself. I was in my late 50s when I got my master's degree, so there's never too late to learn something.
I agree. I agree. You name dropped earlier Miss Janet Hurley. I actually have plans to try and interview her here soon. I think she worked for the Texas Department of Agriculture. So, of course, being the state resident, I'm definitely interested in picking her brain. But the reason I mention her is you, amongst many of the people in it, are tend to be so welcoming and opening and willing to answer questions and give advice. And so, are there? Do you find that that's common throughout pretty much everybody in the industry, or are there a handful of people that you really feel like people can turn to? And are there any of those names that you would feel comfortable saying like, hey, this is a great person who's always willing to talk and answer questions?
Yep. So definitely Janet. And when you talk to Janet, like she has an interesting background because she's like her background is in like therapy, and she does a whole talk on the psychology of pest control and you guys and what you see on a day in and day out basis, right? The whole how people live, right? Because everybody lives differently. The emotional trauma for some people that might be dealing with invisible bugs. So make sure you talk to her about that because that's
Oh
like a
yes.
whole perspective that you don't even think about. And so I heard her talk about that, and I'm like, that is so true. You guys, you to some extent, you're a little traumatized sometimes for some of the stuff you guys see. Let's be honest. And not everybody lives the same way. So definitely talk to her. I will tell you, I don't think I've run into anybody in our industry that isn't willing to help. It might be time limited, right? Because some people have more time, but like, even like Bobby Corrigan, who we brought out to Arizona, he had a plane to catch and it was like an Uber and everything. And people were still like, I just want to tell you, ask you a question or whatever. And he's willing to give his time. Faith Oy in Florida is one of my favorite people too. She is incredible and has a lot of information. Dr. Quinn here, Neve Quinn, she's also generous. But like honestly, I can't think of anybody where I would say, no, they're not going to talk to you. And that's really been important to me. I spoke one time, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and I had like scary people in the audience, like Dr. Roger Gold and Austin Frischman. And I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are gonna kill me. Like they're gonna think I'm this kook. And afterwards they came up and said, that was amazing talk. That was great. And it was like, holy shit. These guys, like that was scary for me because I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to talk in front of these people. I'm going to say something wrong. But I definitely have a different style, right? I definitely am a little bit, I try to be relatable because I can spit out a whole bunch of science words and that means crap to you, or I can try and break
Right.
it down. And I'm not taking it like all the way down, but enough that you can connect the dots because that's what's important. And so I feel like there isn't anybody that, you couldn't talk to that wouldn't be willing to give you help. I really believe that.
One of the things that I learned when I lifted my head up from the grindstone is really how small the industry is and how intimately together it is. That everybody does know everybody, and but that also means that everybody's so accessible. And there's not it, there's not that era of oh well they're so high up in some major corporate chain, I'm gonna have to deal with 9 call center phone free to get connected to such and such. I mean, these people are simple as just shooting them a message on LinkedIn, hey, how's it going, and they're there.
Yeah.
So I think that has been really cool. You mentioned that Janet Hurley talked about kind of psychology behind dealing with pest infestations and stuff that we deal with. I don't know if you got a chance to hear any of my previous podcasts. That actually relates very deeply to my heart and my story because my mother actually dealt with some pretty severe psychosomatic symptoms when we got a flea infestation when I was growing up.
Yep.
And just that sensation of bugging out all the time, and every little black speck is a bug. And
Yeah.
she tends to deal with some sleeping issues, a little bit of an insomniac by nature. And so when her home was stripped of peace and her sanctuary was taken away from her because anything and everything everywhere was a potential for an infestation, or this just a flea to pop up at any moment. She went like 3 or 4 days without really getting any sleep, and then just immediately, her mental health just declined rapidly. And so I actually didn't know that that was something that Miss Janet talked about or that she was a big advocate for. But I really feel like that's something that I'm going to have to kind of like pin her on and talk about for a little bit because that is something that I try to bring to the table with the most amount of compassion and empathy when I'm dealing with customers who are oftentimes, overstimulated, overwhelmed. They're
Sure.
they're in a bad place mentally, and you're there to help them, but at the same time, part of that help and alleviation is not just solving the bug problem, but also offering them that peace and assurance for their mental stability. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that, it is a both sides of that coin. There's the job, there's the science, but then there's the human and the person.
Oh no, for sure. I openly talk about my mom who passed away a few years ago, who was a hoarder. And the problem was she was a closet hoarder. So like the living room was all clean, but she never let you go to the other rooms. And when she passed away, I found out she had this huge rodent infestation, which I have to tell you, as somebody who was running West Coast Rodent Academy, going to New York doing rodent things, I'm like, how could she not tell me? Like, I was so frustrated because I couldn't get involved because it's not as easy. Hey, we have a few rats, Sylvia. It's the whole mental part of the shame, right? Shame,
Right,
and all the stuff that goes on that we're not prepared as in an industry to talk about, right? We get to these
right.
houses and we're like, why don't these people just clean up? And it's so much more beyond that. And so
It is.
yeah, like I said, she gave this talk, and I was like, it's so true. You guys on a day-to-day basis, when you're inside some of these homes and see the problems beyond just the cockroaches or whatever, you almost need a little bit of help for yourselves, because not only are you doing good here, but man, there's some people that are really struggling, and you
Oh
guys see
yeah.
it firsthand. Firsthand.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the most kind of minor traumatic experiences that I experienced in the industry was during COVID, and there were several senior living facilities that I service, and people were cut off from their family; they weren't allowed to interact with them. And there's this one place I'm thinking of particular where I remember walking up to do my service, and there were several families that were standing outside of windows of their loved ones. And this one family, I guess their loved one didn't have like an exterior room or something, and they came up to me in like a panic and was like, can you go in there and can you check? We haven't heard from her in weeks. We don't know if she's doing okay. We don't know if she's got COVID. We don't know if and a lot of these people, aside from the COVID thing that was going on, there were major pest issues that were going on. People who are bedridden, who have bed bugs, and they're being eaten alive, and and somebody has to go in there and and do something about it. And but definitely that was one of those moments it really stuck with me, was that panic that was in the families, and simply just because I had access to the facility, that there was kind of that human to human expectation, like, can you please help me here? And it wasn't necessarily related to the job, but it fell on me while I was doing my job duty. Like you were talking about, some of those things that you just see or experience, whether it's really poor living conditions or abuse, or I've been into some homes where, people are so badly plagued with like depression that they're not cleaning themselves, and they're not taking care of their
Yep.
pets, and all of that. And you mentioned, the shame that goes into reaching out for that help. And I think that's something too that we celebrate people for reaching out for like mental professional help, right, when struggling.
Yep.
And uh, it's like you said, like there almost should be a small celebration for those people who are willing to pick up the phone and dial a professional and say, look, I need help, can someone come
Yeah.
out here?
Yeah.
Because like you said, that person at that point has overcame shame, has overcome guilt, has overcome all these obstacles that like you said, where you can have a close family member who knows that you're a professional in this industry, who knows that you're an expert, who knows that you can help them, but if they're not willing to take that initial step, they're not willing to swallow that pill, and and actually ask for advice or ask for help, then they don't receive it. And so I know it sounds funny to show up to the door, ring the doorbell, and congratulate them for but for reaching, but it is, there should be a kind of general sense of enthusiasm, that it's like, you did the right thing, you did the
Yep.
right thing, you called the right people,
Absolutely.
we're here now.
Absolutely. And for you guys, when you're off, don't do pest control. It's a hard thing to unsee pest control, right? You're going to dinner and you see a bait station, you want to open it, you want to see what they're using, you want to complain about where it is, right? But you guys need to take your downtime. On my way home from yesterday from Northern California, I like stopped at the beach and put my toes in the sand because all of that is a lot of work and a lot of headspace and a lot of things you guys see. So take your downtime and just breathe. Like, don't do pest control on your days off, whatever it is. You only have one day off or whatever. Breathe and that's important.
Yeah, Jorge Bedoya, Captain Cockroach, take a break.
I know he's so
People live it.
I gave him a scholarship for ACE because at the time I gave him a scholarship and he did it, and it's hilarious because I watched him blossom so much. And it's funny because he even did a whole thing on like what to do for ACE, but like he was all like he made like a gajillion flashcards, like so many
Yes.
flashcards, and he's really into it too, which is really great. But yes, you do need to take a break and you need to breathe.
Yes.
100%.
He's definitely one of my favorite characters. I think that's the fun part about exploring the industry is there's so many unique characters and personalities, and
Oh,
you come
there
across
is.
interests, and passions, and those passions start to mix. And
Yeah.
everybody in the general public would think, who in their right mind would be passionate about roaches? And then we've got a whole club of people that are like, yeah.
Yeah. We're like, yes, we do this, we do that. I know my girlfriends that I golf with every Sunday, they're like, so tell us about like what happened here. So then I'm explaining things, or like we see bugs on the course and I'm IDing them. I'm a big proponent of repellent. There's mosquitoes on the course, don't get bit. There's West Nile virus. And they're like, we can always count on you for bizarre stuff, Sylvia. And I'm like, I know, it's fun.
So, do you do any work with mosquitoes or vector control or anything in that degree, like public health or anything like that? Do you work with those kind of people?
So a little bit. Actually, have to give kudos to my kid, who's our Arizona rep. He actually used to do mosquito. He worked for Vector, and he also worked for Disneyland and deployed their mosquito program. He knows way more about mosquitoes than I do, so I always have to ask him, and I'm okay with that. It's okay with the kid knowing more. A little bit. Like I've done a few news things, like for news, like hey, what to look for, especially for indoor mosquitoes, like AED species. Small things that people can do. So I do a little bit of everything. Ants are definitely my passion, and rodents because of that's the way it worked. But just a little bit of everything.
Well, let's take a step back from some of the like technical stuff. Let's dive back in a little bit into Miss Sylvia. What does your day-to-day life look like as far as working for BASF, and for those who are interested in chasing these credentials and maybe becoming an entomologist one day, and maybe stepping out of the field. What does day-to-day life look like? Do you go into an office? Do you speak with people from BSF? Do you do most of your life on the road? I know you're traveling constantly to speak, but so tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so mostly I'm a remote employee, right? I cover the Western United States. There's four of us. We're spread out through the country. And my role with BASF is to support our customers and Salesforce in best product uses of the stuff we have. And so what I will do is a lot of it's computer work, a little bit of field work. So when we have products out there, it's making sure that people are using them correctly, doing site inspections. I do a lot of site inspections, a lot of training and speaking, a lot of that. That's 50% of my job. And so I'm out giving educational courses on pests. I'm guilty of the fact that I worked for distribution for so long that if I don't have the right fit product, I'm going to tell you what the right fit product is because that's just who I am. I love this. Luckily, I work for a company that has a lot of really great products. But one of my lacking is I don't have an ant gel. I don't have one. I don't know that I'm ever going to have one. We're working on it, right? And that's okay because then I'll tell people, hey, I used quantum ones here and this really worked, or whatever product it is. I'm okay with that help. But for me, it's really it's an educational, a training, and then it's the field technical stuff because this stuff is most of the products I work with are already registered. It's hey, does it work in 115 degrees in Arizona? And what trouble are they having? What are the watchouts? Hey, I'm in Seattle and it's pouring every day and you can't spray when it's raining. So what are those strategies you can do to still treat? Because you're still on a service call basis, right? And so where can we apply those products, or what are the formulations that are better for this use or that use. And so that's what it looks like for me. If I think a lot of people are like, what exactly do you do? And it's like, all I know is that apparently I'm doing a good job. And so I'm just going to say it's a little bit of a lot of stuff.
Well, you have to be doing a phenomenal job because aren't you one of the BCE bracket champions from
So I was the
Indy?
inaugural. I still have like like it's hilarious because pest control on the west side of the Mississippi, we kind of get forgotten. There's so many great entomologists in the East Coast, and so it was hilarious to watch. And that was fun, and you learn about people that you never heard of, right? And so this time around, on the two last, I mean, Pat Hoddle is like a hero of mine. Like she's amazing. She knows so much about stored product pests. So if you don't know who she is, and she works for a private company, but like she has some amazing, she got like she was in the Pest Control Hall of Fame, which is, those are the kind of dreams I have. I don't want to win an Academy Award. I want to be in the Pest Control Hall of Fame. And people look at you like your friends and they go, you're a kook. But I mean, when she was inducted, she's one of like two women. And that to me is amazing. And so yeah, it's cool to watch. And I mean, I like watching the brackets. It's been fun. I learned a lot about people. And I met people I didn't see before. Like I never met Shannon Sked. That guy is amazing. He's so smart. So it's cool.
So I actually hadn't heard of the Pest Control Hall of Fame. Who runs that? Where does that
So
come
it's
from?
run through like a magazine. It's PMP magazine, and there's a couple
Okay.
of them. Like there's a couple of award winners, but like PMP Hall of Fame. If you look at Pest World, they induct these people. And like this past year, I got to attend the dinner, and Pat Hoddle, Harold Harlan. So if you ever heard about, and you're like, who's that guy? He is a medical entomologist and worked for MPMA. But all the bed bugs, like all the Harlan strain bed bugs, he kept this colony since 1972. Like he had the only bedbug colony, and basically he fed them on himself. You don't have to be weird to be an entomologist, but it helps. Um, and so he kept this colony, and so people were trying to find bedbugs to test for different products, and they were his colony, and so they just put him in the Hall of Fame, which was like he's incredible. So there's definitely some cool people, but you can look it up on PMP magazine on their website. They have all the past people, and that's really cool for our industry. And so we definitely have some rock stars out there, and so it's a lot to attain. But I definitely admire those people, and try to work every day to help people manage pests in the best way they can. And I do it in a lot of weird ways, but that's what I do.
Well, I am definitely going to be stumping for you to be on the Pest Control Hall
Yes.
of Fame. That I
I started
will be
I started
shouting
a
it
little
everywhere.
campaign. Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
pretty cool stuff. It is. It's definitely like when you idolize those people, people think like it's not Academy Award. It's like this. This is like cool. So anyway, it's neat. But that's what I do. I'm just here in California trying to help people manage pests better.
If you weren't in California, where would you be? Could you be anywhere? I mean, is the remote nature of your job allow you to be anywhere, or is remote is
Nah, they want you to
California
stay
home?
in. Yeah, they want me to stay in territory. So Arizona, California. I've always toyed with living in Arizona at one point, and so maybe I'll retire there. But I will be going to the beach later today too. So I like living closer to the beach. So I don't know. I don't know where I'll end up.
Well, as a fellow beachgoer today, I think we can't today for that. If you wouldn't mind just doing me a favor, showing that shirt one more time, because
Yes, look,
Sylvia
I got my
Kenmuir
shirt. I'm
likes
so
to.
excited. I got my shirt.
Oh,
Yep.
well, that is the best. So just a little small merch plug there, guys. If you're interested in getting a shirt or getting anything, Miss Sylvia has. She's a huge fan of LTK, and
I do,
we're
and I
we're
made him put
appreciative to
a
have you
girl
here.
shirt on there. I'm like, hey, I don't see a lady shirt. And it has a V-neck and everything. And I was also part of the April Fool's prank, and I got my candle yesterday. That was cool. I'm gonna tell you, I don't know if it smells like Termidor HE because I wear a respirator when I use that, but I got my Termidor HE candle because I was part of the. I was looking for the women's shirts, and I saw April Fool. I guess I didn't know it was an April Fool's joke, and I'm like, oh, candles? I'm into candles. I'm going to order them. And then they were like, oh, sorry, this was a kind of a spoof, but we're going to send you one anyway. So I got that yesterday too.
So the candles had to be placed there by popular demand. We did it as a joke, and I was like, oh man, I hope we don't get any kind of like copyright infringement or anything. But it's just been a small little gag gift for a couple of people. So
Yeah, there's a lady that
I
does
love
like
it.
tumblers on there, and I'm always telling people, they're like, "Is this?" I'm like, "You know what? La 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 la. I don't hear la la la."
Hey, well, as long as you're burning your candle and enjoy it, that's all that really matters the most.
It does. It's all in good fun.
Awesome. Well, we're running up right here on an hour, so with the beautiful day, we'll go ahead and call it here. We'll go get ourselves some good sunshine and some play in the sand. I just want to take an extra second to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for talking to me and joining us. Thank you for joining the group and just being a huge supporter of LTK, what we're doing here. We are massive fans of you, and we believe that you should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to shout your name from the rooftops of everywhere because what you're doing with technology, what you're doing with education, whether the other people in the associations or the societies or whatever, whether they see it or not, I can tell you right now, boots on the ground, people out here with spray canisters in their hand, thousands and hundreds and thousands of us have heard your name, have heard your voice, and have been coached by you, and we're eternally grateful for it. We are for it. We're better technicians for it. And your impact to the industry is vast and real. So just thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. You've been an amazing guest and you've been an amazing person. So, just keep doing it and we're going to keep cheering you on every step of the way.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's great. And again, if I can help any of you, we'll do something for Ace. I promise you, we'll do some Ace things with you guys. But hang in there. And again, we appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. You have a blessed day, okay?
Okay, you too. Take care.
Thanks for tuning into the License to Kill podcast. We hope you found today's episode helpful, informative, and engaging. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. It really helps us to reach more listeners like you. Have a question or a topic that you'd like us to cover in a future episode? Connect with us through our Facebook, YouTube, and most importantly, our Discord. Until next time, this is your host, Marcus, reminding you to stay sharp, stay legendary, stay connected.